They are business leaders, experts in economy, society, and culture. In 15 minutes, their insights will create a vivid picture of Vietnam. Sharing Vietnam, the country as you see it.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sharing Vietnam. I'm your host John Chun. Family planning as well as reproductive health care is a significant part of the National Development Strategy. It is one of the top economic and social issues which helps improve the quality of life not only for the individual and the family but society as a whole. Today in our program we will have the chance to talk with Dr. Ton van der Velden, country representative of Pathfinder here in Vietnam. Dr. Ton, it's a pleasure.
John, nice to meet you.
Before we begin, here's a clip about our guest for today.
Mr. Ton van der Velden, country representative Pathfinder in Vietnam.
Hello everyone and welcome back. And actually you're teaching a class. How's that been going?
It's very well, thank you. I'm teaching together with a friend of mine.
I see. So Dr. Ton, they say that Aikido is more than just a sport, more than just Japanese Kung Fu. It's more of spiritual, more of a way of life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I read once somewhere that, so it doesn't make much sense to practice a martial art where you get hurt once a month in practice and they have to pay the fee every month.
Exactly.
So as an investment, it doesn't make much sense. But if you see it as part of your spiritual development, which helps you improve your concentration, your awareness of your surroundings, and in general, a positive attitude in life, then it's very much a thing worth doing.
Definitely. And do you find that helping in your work in healthcare?
I find it help not only in my work, but also in my daily life, my family life. Try to stay balanced, stay concentrated on what you're doing, take things one at a time.
I see. And talking about your work, how long have you been working in healthcare?
I've been working outside of my own country in healthcare for a little over 20 years now.
So are there any differences from working back home and working in a country like Vietnam?
Well, there are differences, but those differences are rapidly getting smaller. Vietnam is, as I said, the development of Vietnam is going very fast, and healthcare in Vietnam is getting to look like healthcare in Holland, where I come from.
Oh, so you're from. And so in healthcare, do you see Vietnam as, how do you assess the healthcare system in Vietnam currently?
I think for its level of development, Vietnam has a very strong healthcare system. And there's been a lot of investments in healthcare, both in facilities, in manpower, in equipment, supplies.
So doctor, I want to talk more about the organization that you work for, but for now we're going to take a little break. And here's a clip about Pathfinder here in Vietnam.
Pathfinder International is an American organization which has operated in Vietnam since 1994. As Vietnam economy moved toward a market economy, Pathfinder is focusing on partnering with the government to improve the quality and range of reproductive health services throughout the country. Pathfinder currently implements a range of reproductive health projects in Vietnam. This project contributes to establish nationwide priorities including the National Strategy on Reproductive Health Care, the National Action Plan on HIV and AIDS, and a range of national human resource policy for health professional development. For each Pathfinder combines innovation with system-based approach to improve sustainability.
Hello everyone and welcome back. So doctor, could you share with us a particular experience of working in healthcare here in Vietnam?
We have a large program on youth sexual and reproductive health, and that includes that we help our partners organize quizzes and game shows around sexual and reproductive health in schools for young people. And at one of those occasions, I remember this young woman, a girl, coming to her teacher and confessing that there was somebody in her family who was trying to get too close to her.
I see.
Who was, and she was ashamed, she was embarrassed, she didn't really know what to do. But after the program, after the game show, after she heard people talking openly about these things, she had the nerve and the courage to go to her teacher and tell her teacher that, who could then do something about it.
Exactly.
And I think that taught me a very important lesson. As a father, and I'm sure it's the same for Vietnamese parents, we value education. We know that we have to give our children the best education possible to prepare them for their adult lives. What is sometimes difficult for us as parents is to realize that it's not only about reading and writing and geography and history. There are other parts of life that you also need to prepare your children for.
Definitely.
And their sexual and reproductive lives is part of that. I think that that is our responsibility as parents, and we should be helped in that by schools and by clinics and by maybe mass organizations, by education programs. But if we don't do that, we fail our children.
Definitely. And I think you touched on a very important issue here in Vietnam, the openness, the dialogue about sexual education. It's still, sex is somewhat of a taboo topic, something that you don't discuss. In your opinion, what would you say the best advice or solution to kind of creating that open dialogue between parents and just between people in general about discussing health, sex health?
I think the very first step is to realize that there is no room for fear in this. There are many people who are afraid that if you discuss sexual reproductive health with young people, that they will start to experiment, that they will start to become intimate with their peers. A lot of the research shows that that's actually not the case. And I use the example from my own country in Holland. We have one of the lowest teenage pregnancy rates in the world, and we credit that to the fact that there is good sexual and reproductive health education in schools. Maybe an analogy would help. We teach children geography, and we give them atlases and roadmaps so that they can use these tools. Not because, and we're not afraid that they will then leap up and start traveling.
Exactly.
But when they mature, when they grow up, and they do need to travel, they will not get lost.
Exactly.
I think it's the same with sex education. You give young people tools and choices, not because you expect them to start using that new knowledge right away, but when they mature, when they grow up, they have the tools they need not to get lost in that world.
Exactly. So doctor, could you give us a more detailed description of the projects that Pathfinders has in terms of family planning and reproductive health care? About
8 years ago, we realized that we were doing a lot of training in the field to people who are already working. And we thought maybe we should partner with universities and try to improve the initial training that medical students were receiving. And so for the last 8 years, we've partnered with 8 out of the 10 medical universities in Vietnam and provided some technical assistance in improving curricula and improving teaching methods, modernizing some teaching methods that were used there. About 4 years ago, we realized that all our work happened in the public sector, but that Vietnam is a really fast-growing private sector where a lot of people work and a lot of healthcare is being provided. And so we started working with 4 associations, medical associations, nurses associations, so to allow them to better inform their members and do some in-service training for their members.
I see. And how would you assess how effective the programs have been?
Well, our programs, obviously we try to make them as effective as possible. When we design a program, we always look at the existing evidence base, not just in Vietnam, but globally, to see what is the state of the art in terms of how you should design a program, what elements should be in it. We always start working right from the start with our partners, our Vietnamese partners, to make sure that we have their input and their ideas incorporated in the program. And then our programs start usually with a baseline assessment that tells us in detail and in numbers what the current state is. And then we apply usually midterm and sometimes annual evaluations for our programs.
I see. And Doctor, actually we're going to take a quick break. And here's a clip about reproductive health and family planning here in Vietnam.
In recent time, Vietnam has achieved many significant results in the reproductive health care and family planning. Fertility and population growth rate has strongly decreased. Reproductive health as well as mother and child health has been improved markedly. However, we are also facing many challenges such as the large difference in birth rate among provinces and regions, especially the sex ratio of births is increasing. In the future, Vietnam will continue to direct the development policy of family and build a more effective healthcare as well as social system in order to bring out the normal sex ratios to ensure the happiness for people and development as well as sustainability for nation.
Hello everyone and welcome back. So Doctor, I mentioned in the previous segment that one of the issues with sexual health and family planning is its lack of dialogue. Are there any other difficulties you see here in Vietnam?
Well, we've talked about the issue of youth sexual and reproductive health. I think the family planning reproductive health program in Vietnam is very mature and it's reaching the majority of the population. But there are still pockets in Vietnam people, disadvantaged people, particularly those living in the mountainous areas, that are not yet reached with education, not yet sufficiently reached with services. And I think the next challenge for Vietnam's reproductive health program is to adjust what is now a national program to make it specific for these smaller pockets that are not yet being reached. And that's a very difficult task.
Doctor, Pathfinder has been here in Vietnam for a while now. For the future, what do you guys hope to implement or hope to continue to contribute to the country?
Well, more and more of our programs are aimed towards people in disadvantaged areas, particularly in mountainous areas, with partners like universities in those areas or secondary medical schools and medical colleges. And increasingly, we would like to design programs with our partners so that they help people in those areas, as well as youth sexual reproductive health.
That's great. And actually, that's all the time we have for today. So just like to invite you before ending the show if you'd like to share anything with our viewer audience.
If you have any questions about Pathfinder or about our work, please send an email to pathfindervietnam@pathfinder.org. If after this show you have questions about reproductive health or you need advice, I would recommend that you visit the website of a local NGO here in Vietnam called tansubantche.org. As a parent and as a healthcare worker, my advice would be don't let your children grow up in ignorance. Give them the skills, the knowledge, and the tools they need to make healthy and responsible choices in their own lives.
And thank you, Dr. Tone, for joining us today. It was a
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And that concludes our show for today. Thank you for watching Sharing Vietnam. From all of us from NetVit, Channel VTC10, I'm John Chun. Live for today, and we'll see you tomorrow.